Good evening. Good evening, my friends. Put my mic on, seeing it, making sure that it works. um, I thought I'd just make a little video today. I was thinking about just questions on what it's like to live when you lose your beloved life companion after 48 years. And um, I think you're finding out a little bit about that after all the videos that I've been making since my beloved Richard passed. And, but I just wanted to share some of the things that maybe some people might, um, hey, wait a minute here. Okay, it's going. um, some people might be going through, with loss of a loved one. This is my time in the late afternoon when I had my glass of wine, and I thought I'm going to make a video. And I was thinking, like, I sometimes, like everybody, I get on my phone through YouTube and I scroll through YouTube and I see the different uh, podcasts on the news and what's going on with out there in the big bad world. And I have to tell you that as someone that has been very politically active since I was 16 years old, I loved politics. It just came uh, like a natural passion for me. Um, Sometimes I wonder in a prior life if I had been involved in some kind of politics and it just got carried through in this life because um, from the time I attended college, I was writing political articles, even for the college paper. One of my first articles that was published, one of my first pieces, commentary, you might say, was published at Pierce College many, many years ago when I was only 18 years old. And it was about how um, at that point, there was a transition. Instead of giving students their own identification number, they started to switch over and use the Social Security number. And my commentary for the school paper was, big mistake. Big Brother is watching. Because as soon as they got a federal number that they're going to use as your identification for everything, um, that's the beginning of tracking you for everything. And it was pretty prophetic. It was a pretty, it was, it was, you might say, ahead of my time kind of prophecy. And I didn't get any feedback from the students on it. The students, students are students. All they care about is meeting with their friends and, having their beer parties. And I was included in that, as well. But um, I remember writing that, and I didn't get any feedback from my own age group, but I did from my professors. They were the ones that said that that was a really significant piece that I had written. And I remember one philosophy teacher saying, it's really probably too late now, Jackie. It's already happening and it's too late." And I said, yeah, I know, because they're already doing it. So so, but my point was, how far are we going to let this go, kind of thing. So what I'm getting at is, I was already very, very politically involved. And another commentary that I wrote when I was very young was I was concerned about the oil spills. Um, it was right around the time when Exxon had that horrific, horrible oil spill in Alaska. And my point simply was that the oil companies had to do a better job of making sure disasters like that didn't happen. Well, right about that time was when I met my beloved, beautiful, handsome Richard. Oh, he was he was so handsome. Uh, I'll never forget the first time I met him. Uh, I met him through his secretary because the secretary was sharing the house that I was renting with me, and she introduced me to Richard. And when I first saw him, I thought, oh my gosh, because at that time, this was the early 70s, folks. For all you youngsters that might be, watching this, you may not be able to, connect. But for those in my age group, this was the era of the Rolling Stones. The Beatles were kind of already breaking up. The early 70s, and also that included Tom Jones. And when I was around 13 years old or 14 years old, Tom Jones was a Welsh singer, very popular, had his own show. It was on Thursday nights, I remember, because my mom wanted to take my brother and myself to a playhouse. She had bought tickets, and the plays were on Thursday nights, and it just broke. I hated that because I really wanted to go to the plays, but it just happened to be on the very night that the Tom Jones show was on. And Tom Jones, he was a sexy guy. He had these cute little curls, and this long sideburns, and he really knew how to belt out a song. I mean, he had a beautiful, strong voice, um, and I used to just wait. I used to pretend that I would have to tell my mom, I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry, Mom, you're going to have to go without me, because in those days they didn't have the recorders, where you could record the show. So I sometimes I'd have to make up a little, like, oh, I'm not feeling too well, so I could watch the Tom Jones show. So when I first met Richard, the first thing I noticed about him was he looked like Tom Jones, like a carbon copy of Tom Jones, and my heart just went, oh my gosh, it's like Tom Jones. And um, not to say that I didn't become attracted to him as he is himself. It's not like, okay, I'm going to be attracted to him only because he looks like Tom Jones. It wasn't like that. It's just that he reminded me of Tom Jones, and I kind of had this teenage crush when I was 13 on Tom Jones. And when I first met him, he was so cute, and his secretary and I lived in this house. It was up in the Hollywood Hills, and half of it was over a cliff on stilts. It was kind of a funky, crazy house, but it was really a cool house because it overlooked this whole mountain and valley, and that was the reason why I wanted to rent it. I rented out a room because it looked it was kind of out in nature up in the hills, and it overlooked, and the deck went out overlooking this beautiful valley in the middle of the hills. And Richard came in, and there was a couch, and it went from one place to the other place closer to the door, and the couch went out towards uh, where the house was on stilts. And I just got I just got this kick because he looked out there and he saw that the house was on stilts. So he sat way over on the other edge of the couch, closest to where the kitchen and the door where it was not on stilts. He sat way over, and he says, "I'm not going to sit over on that side in case the house goes down." And that was it. I just fell head over heels in love with him the minute I heard that joke, and the way it was so cute the way he sat way over on the end. And part of it was he was actually kind of serious about it, but it was also amusing. And he had, at that time, he was a practicing lawyer, and he had really expensive suits that he wore. I mean, my gosh, he was like knockout, a knockout and handsome guy with these beautiful, like navy blue suit, and he had this shirt to go with it that was kind of colorful. It was in the 70s, so people wore like colorful, shirts and things. And he had this colorful, like navy blue, red kind of shirt with this slick uh, suit and tie, a beautiful tie, and his shoes were just beautiful. I mean, everything about him was just handsome and beautiful. Um, and he right away had such a sense of humor. That's why in the last video, when Amber was connecting with him, she said, "He has a sense of humor, doesn't he?" He always had this, wit about him, like just really like he would come up with these quick little quips that were hilarious, just out of the blue. He could have been a comedian if he wanted to be. And he was a great storyteller. Um, Loved to tell stories. That was Richard. So there was this point where his girlfriend that he had, she was very nice. I really liked her. Her name was Mona, and I I really did like her. She was I said to Richard, if it weren't for me being with you, I would be the first one saying, "You need to get together with her again." But of course I, did not encourage that. But, I met her. She was very nice, but there was, some things that they just couldn't work out together. And I'm not going to go into those personal reasons, but it ended, amicably and nicely. There was no fight. There was no arguments. There was nothing like that. It was just that um, Mona wanted to have children, and I don't think Richard was ready to go in that direction. He already had um, a son, very young at that time. I think at that time he was like 8 or 9 years old, and and she also had some health issues that he was concerned about, that might be that was genetic, that could have been passed on to the child, and for that reason they just couldn't agree on that, and they just ended up separating. But they had been kind of separated for a pretty long time, I would say. um, and that's when he met me, and he asked me to, he said, if you want to, I've got the house in Granada Hills, and there's an extra room, and and one thing led to another, and I ended up moving in to his house, and we became a you know we became a couple, as it were. And it just went on from there. 48 years. 48 years. And I just miss him so much, and it's not easy to go on, in my life without him. I have to admit that. I mean, I will start crying right now because I feel the minute I talk about this. Okay. It's very hard for me to talk about it without crying. And I'm doing the best I can without him. And if it weren't for my dog, Schmickles, to keep me company, I would really, really feel so very lonely. But Schmickles keeps me company. And I know that I feel like Richard does try to be with me in the best way that he can. But I miss his physical presence, and that can't ever happen again. That life for him is over now. He left that physical body, and the life that he led from the time he was born to the time that he passed is over. And his soul lives on. But this life that he had with me, with his parents, with his son, with his ex-wife, all of that with Mona, that is over now. And I have a hard time dealing with that because I want him to come back in the physical way. You know, I want to hear his physical voice again, and I can't. I'll never hear his physical voice again. I may be able to get some kind of energy from him, some sort of presence from him, uh, some sort of telepathic. And I felt, and I talked about this, that I felt like I have been getting telepathic thoughts from him. I know he's there with me in spirit, but it's really hard in this for me to go on in this physical plane, in this physical existence without him. And I wanted to share those thoughts with you because there are people that are going through the same thing. And my advice to them is to don't give up. You're going to be with them because there's no time and space where they are. So for us, it seems like, okay, how long do I have? How many years do I have before I can be released and be where he is, in that higher realm of heaven, if you want to call it heaven, if you want to call it God, if you want to call it source, if you want to call it the divine being of all things, whatever label you want to call it, we're always there all the time. I know we're always in that spiritual space all the time if we know how to be in it. Um, but what I do to try to go on, even if, you know, at times I feel like I haven't done what I should do to be in that higher frequency. And here I am kind of locked into this physical world without Richard. And I feel like I'm here without any connection with him, and I'm lonely and I miss him. And what am I going to do? And Richard and I really, you know, we used to have kind of a social life with his friends when we were both younger. But as we became seniors and lived in the cabin, it was just us, you know. And Brett would come over and visit from time to time. But you know, we just enjoyed each other's company, and that's all we needed. You know, was just each other. So when he passed, it's not like I have friends calling and a social network, and I'm not even sure if I would want that, to tell you the truth, because I'm the kind of person that is going through grieving, and I prefer to go through it by myself in my own way. And but what I have been doing is I have been finding things that keep me going with ranch responsibilities, because that's my connection with Richard. That's my way of saying, Richard, I'm going to take care of things. This will always be your ranch, whether you're here or in heaven. I will always, I'm just here as, wanting to take care of things. You're the one that did all of this. And I'm here to just protect it and do what I can to be responsible. And that keeps me, motivated, um, with more positive thoughts, you might say, instead of falling into the well of grieving, which is really hard. And it happens. It happens to me quite often where I'll just break down and cry, and I don't know how to get out of that darkness. But if I, you know, focus on things that he would do if he were here, and I say to myself, okay, this is what Richard would do. I'm going to take care of it. I'll be responsible in doing it, whether it's mowing the acre and getting rid of the foxtails, which I really enjoy doing. I made a little video about that. It's physical work, but it made me feel good to be out there in nature, to be out under the sky, mowing and, making everything look pretty with, now, around the house, it looks more like a golf course now instead of, a bunch of weeds growing all over the place. So I feel really proud about that. And, I have my books that I read. I uh, I go to places that I take Schmickles, and we go to different places, whether it's to the beach or to a doggy park. I find things that give me comfort, and most always, it's always in nature. And of course, I go to Richard's gravesite, and I enjoy placing flowers. I started to get at it. That's why I said, that was so meaningful to me when Amber said he's offering a bouquet of flowers, because I think Richard has seen that I have been, feeling this emptiness, missing him. And so I've been filling the house and even outdoors with flowers, because flowers to me are a kind of reflection of God's beauty. So even behind me, I got a little pot of these tiny little roses that are so beautiful. I have more flowers outside. I like gardening. I planted tomato plants in several pots. And I like taking Schmickles for walks. And those are the things that help to get me through. Now, as far as what's going on in the big bad world, and I will tell you that from my perspective, where I'm at right now, I started out by saying I was always very politically motivated about things that I cared about deeply, even back in college. That my main concern was protecting nature, and that's why that oil spill in Alaska really, uh, it felt like it was something that hurt me personally, to find out, what that oil did to all the sea life, including up on the shore. And that started my journey into politics, as being an environmentalist. And then from there, studying philosophy. And then from there, teaching philosophy. And I had a section in my philosophy class on environmental ethics. I spent a month on that. Um, but I stopped listening lately because uh, I don't trust the corporate media, and I haven't, all the way back when Bush invaded Iraq, and the corporate media was cheering him on, okay? They were waving flags and cheering George W. Bush. Yeah, you go for it. You know, there was not a single criticism from CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NPR. They all loved that George W. Bush went in and attacked a defenseless country that had nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction. Now, that's the corporate media that you are now believing, okay? Okay, that's the corporate media that backed up George W. Bush on a preemptive strike attack that was totally unconstitutional. There was no evidence that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and the media was throwing roses at George W. Bush for it. Now you have a president that's trying to stop a 5th century barbaric ideological culture that has oppressed their people, the Iranians, particularly the women, to a 5th century time slot where the women can't even go out without a hijab and a burqa, and if they do, they're thrown in prison with rats and roaches and sometimes even tortured. The men, if they even make a peep of criticism, they're killed immediately, or they're thrown in prison, and they're lucky if they live, but if they do, they have to be in prison for a very long time. This is a regime that wants to destroy anything that resembles Western civilization. And they believe, when I say ideological, they believe that they're doing it in the name of God, which is really weird, because what I'm finding out through my beloved Richard, and what I've known even before Richard passed, is God is a God of love. If you find any leaders that tell you we gotta, massacre these people and we gotta, eliminate Israel, we gotta eliminate the United States, we gotta destroy them, and we gotta bomb them, we gotta do this and that. If you have leaders that are telling their people to hate and to use violence, telling their people to hate and saying that it's in the name of God, you better, shut that down really fast, because God is a God of love. Okay? God is unconditional love. So when they say God, it's not the God of love, it's something else. It's something else, but it's not God, okay? It is definitely and absolutely not God. It's something else. And for them to say that they're doing this in the name of God, they're going to find out in the afterlife that they got it all wrong. And they'll be shown that. They'll be shown that God is a God of love, not a God of hate and violence and war, not a God of conquering, and not a God of oppression, not a God of torture. That is not God at all. There's no God that does anything like that. As the God that you go to after life is a God of unconditional love. The God that is the source of all life is a God of divinity, of eternal love. Hate, violence comes from human beings, not God. Hate, violence comes from human beings that are screwed up, okay? And they've been screwed up from the time Jesus walked on the earth. And what's going on right now, this too will pass, as the Buddha would put it. But the media is making it look like, Trump is the big bad boogeyman. Oh, he's terrible. He's starting the war. Yeah, la, la, la. All of that. But somebody has got to stop this violence, and sometimes you need someone that will stand up. As bad as any kind of wars are, I don't know, anyone that loves God and prays and understands that God is a God of love. Nobody likes wars, okay? Uh, at least the people that feel that way, that they want peace, that they want love. I'm a child of the 60s. I came out of the days right during the Vietnam War, and I was a young hippie in those days, peace and love, and I still believe in that. But sometimes, like for an example, you have something that comes up with Stalin or Hitler or leaders that are creating nothing but violence across the world and hate across the world. Some kind of force has to stop that. And I believe, and I'm kind of apolitical, okay? I'm not saying I'm for this person or that person, but I believe that a president that has somehow escaped from 3 assassinations is somehow being protected by higher forces for a reason. And you may not like him, you may not like his personality. That doesn't matter. To my mind, I feel like he's being used by higher powers to stop this ripple effect and perpetual violence coming from a regime that has oppressed their own people, particularly the women, and wants to spread that oppression and violence and hate across the whole world. Somebody's got to stop it. Okay? So I don't think this is going to be a long, drawn out war like the media. And that brings me back to the media. I would take a few steps back and turn off the media and just say your prayers. Continue to pray for peace and for a positive outcome, because we need all the prayers we can get right now to bring about positive balance in the world. But the media is only going to provoke you, and they want that intentionally. They want to provoke you. They want you to be angry. They want to divide us all up, and they want to create chaos. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that because the media is owned by people that are not nice people, and they have a plan of that is not good for the people of the world. People love their own countries. They don't want to all of a sudden melt into some one global thing. Okay, no matter how challenging it may be in a person's country, they identify with that country and they love that country. What's going on here is that the reason the media is attacking Trump so hard is he's going against this globalist plan where you eliminate all sovereign countries. And once that plan goes through, we will all lose our freedoms because the vision they have is a totalitarian one. And it means that you will no longer have sovereign, independent countries. So this idea that it's going to be one world and we're all going to hold hands and be happy, no, it's not going to work out that way at all. No. So I believe that people love their countries. Even people that have immigrated here may find a better life economically. but they miss their countries. It's their homeland. They identify with it. If they're from India, they still identify as an Indian. They still identify and have a love for their country. If they're from Afghanistan, they still identify and love their country. What's going on with these, behind the scenes billionaires that think it's going to be a great thing to eliminate all these countries and make us all the same? That's the whole idea. This idea that the Democrats talk about, we love diversity. No, they don't love diversity. The plan is, and they're part of it, and they're pushing it, is to make everybody the same. And what's sad is when I do talk, I was a Democrat all my life. Now, I'm kind of, I just had to, walk away from that party because they no longer represented my values. But I noticed already that if you don't agree with them, they get angry. They get really, really angry. My cousin won't even speak to me now because I have a different perspective. And once upon a time, the Democrats appreciated the, quote, diversity of ideas and opinions. Oh, they like the diversity of, people of color, immigrants, different, a different culture, or, transgender, and gays. They like the diversity of that, but they hate the diversity of ideas and opinions. They don't want that because they want everybody to think exactly like they think. They want everybody to hold the same opinions that they hold. That's not diversity of opinions at all. So it's already happening where there's people have been programmed to think exactly alike and to be exactly the same. What a boring world that would be, right? I mean, yeah, it's not good sometimes to have our conflicts, but it's good to have different opinions and for people to say, well, this is what I think, and this is how you think. And maybe, we can kind of get at some higher viewpoint by combining the two ideas. Arguments are good, a debate is good. Seeing different perspectives is a good thing. You grow from that. You have a higher intelligence and growth from diversity of ideas and opinions. They don't want that because the plan is to make us all the same and to wipe out all the sovereign countries. So we're just all a bunch of ants, as Dostoevsky put it, on an ant heap. You really want that? You really want to go there? So that's my opinion about politics right now. I turn off the corporate media. This is the same corporate media that impeached Bill Clinton, not because of Lewinsky, but because he was actually trying to help the middle class. And he did. He brought about, better financial economic conditions for the middle class. He didn't want to go to war. And for that reason, they impeached him, not because of Lewinsky. Okay? And then George W. Bush, who went right into war, they applauded him. The corporate media hugged. Don't you remember, any of you, how they hugged the NBC, ABC, MSNBC? They all loved George W. Bush and his wars. They all loved Obama. When Obama created the worst refugee crisis since World War II with his drone wars. Libya completely destroyed that country. It was a functional country. And whether you liked the leader or not, people were living pretty happy lives there. And they were pretty well off until Obama came and destroyed it all with his drone wars. Okay? Where was the media there? Where was my cousin then, screaming out, what is this? I don't like the wars. No, not a peep. Okay. They liked it when Obama was, dropping bombs on Yemen, the poorest country in the Middle East. That's the last thing they needed was Obama to start dropping drone bombs on them. Yeah, he did it. And he went into Libya, destroyed that country. He got Afghanistan going again, which was peaceful. Afghanistan was peaceful because Bush moved everything into Iraq. He moved the war and everything right in Iraq, and he could care less about Afghanistan. So Afghanistan was fairly peaceful until Obama came in and started bombing Afghanistan and sending the military into Afghanistan. Does anybody remember that? Does anybody care? How about what he did in Syria? Made a mess in Syria. That was Obama. So by the time Obama was done, he created the worst refugee crisis since World War II, and millions of those people were displaced, and where'd they go? They ran into Europe and wherever they could go to get into, which was part of the one world global thing. Let's mix it all up, says George Soros. Let's bring those people in and stir it all up and forget about borders. Because once we got it, all the people thinking the same and being the same and no countries, then we can easily control them. Okay, that's the plan in a nutshell. But I find the hypocrisy of everybody attacking Trump, trying to stop a madman from the 5th century that's trying to oppress women and make women wear hijabs and burqas, across the whole world, and their 5th century culture attitude. And the Iranian people are good people. They're nice people. They want to be free. You don't hear their opinions. You don't hear the media, going to them where they're saying, hey, we want out of these chains, help us to get out of this bondage. You don't hear their voices, right? No, they've been silenced. But, I'm just telling you, the hypocrisy of the media is sickening. And, for the Democrats to sit there, the war, where were they when Obama was making a friggin' mess out of the Middle East, all across the Middle East? Where were they then? Okay? It's okay. It's fine for Obama to do it. But, oh my gosh, if Trump tries to, stop an evil regime from spreading their hate and violence all across the world, how dare him? We're not going to be part of this war. England couldn't wait to join Bush, to start bombing the hell out of Iraq and Afghanistan. Now they stand up there like they're such moral agents. We're not going to be part of this war. It's just the hypocrisy is sickening. But you see, now you know why this is the political side of me. This is me going back when I was 16 years old, and I was involved in politics all the way through college, all the way through my life, up until my beloved Richard passed. And now I just feel like what counts is our prayers and living as much as you can in a state of kindness. Be kind to one another, and there won't be any wars. Stop the hate, stop the violence, stop getting angry because someone else has a different opinion than yours. My God, it's just ridiculous, the way people get so angry when they find out that you have a different opinion from theirs. And that's not so much the case for the Trump people. The Trump people, they say, okay, you have your opinion. I'm not going to take my hand and try to choke you for it. Unlike all the Democrats that I've ever met, that if you haven't, even so much as mentioned the word Trump, they want to kill you. It's just absurd. But, okay, that's all I have to say. This is what happened. I had a little bit too much wine and I went going. Okay, have a good night, everybody. Just sharing some thoughts. Bye-bye.